Hi, I'm Andrew Fluschi, your Virginia DUI and traffic defense attorney. Today I want to talk to you about what the police call checking details and what I call roadblocks. This is something I believe I've spoken about in other videos about whether or not roadblocks or checking details are constitutional and allowed, and they are, unfortunately, under our current law. There's certain requirements of how the police have to demonstrate and prove that there was a valid roadblock, and there are certain things they have to do to establish that. So it's definitely, if you are stopped at a checking detail or roadblock by the police, you definitely need to contact a local attorney to see if there's some issues or arguments. Anytime there's a roadblock case, there's extra burden for the Commonwealth to prove that they actually did the constitutional methods to conduct a roadblock. But what I want to talk about today is, should we even allow this? Is this something that we should even allow? I just saw the Virginia State Police promoted a thing on Facebook about how they did a checking detail over Memorial Day weekend at the border, and how they were so proud that the people were so safe that they over 2 hours they stopped 273 vehicles over a 2-hour period, and only 10 violations resulted. So it's 273 vehicles and they only got 10 violations. Isn't it so great that people were so safe? The way I read that is actually the reverse, is that 273 vehicles were detained by the police for literally no reason, simply for coming down the road at a certain time. They were stopped. That's a seizure. Now the courts and the Constitution allegedly would say that that's okay as long as the government can prove that it was a legitimate roadblock. But my question is, should we ever allow that? And especially when the police own numbers show this roadblock, 273 people were stopped, or vehicles were stopped, and only 10 violations came out of it. And what were those violations? Was it 10 DUIs? No, not a single DUI. There was 8 vehicle equipment type violations, inspection stickers and equipments and registration type things. So 8, what I would say, nothing violations, fix-it type tickets. There was 1 driving on suspended, and there was 1 misdemeanor arrest is what they called it. They didn't specify what that was. So out of 273 stops, they only got 2 violations that were actually anything really serious. And there's only misdemeanors at that, and not even a misdemeanor that endangers anyone. So 273 violations, 2 remotely serious stops. That's a 0.7% rate that they found issues. So out of all these people were stopped, only 0.7% of them were doing anything really decently wrong. Yes, there was a couple of equipment violations and inspections, which is technically against the law, but that's a whole other topic for another video. So is this something that we should be allowing? That we can let the police literally put a roadblock on the road and say, show me your papers, because we're fishing for that 0.7% of people that may be up to something that's decently serious that we care about? I would say no. I would say if that's the point we're at, that roadblocks are producing 0.7% of people stopped in a roadblock are actually up to no good, I don't think that's a legitimate constitutional encounter at that point. I think we've gone far afield of the Constitution. It's not like we're saying, yes, we can put a roadblock here because we know about half the people are up to no good and there's issues here and we're going to stop them. We're basically saying that only 0.7% of the people are up to no good, so we're going to stop everybody and we're going to ferret out that 0.7%. To me, that's an issue. And to me, I think that's a constitutional issue, that the police can't prove, the Commonwealth can't prove that a roadblock is actually going to find problems. That's one of the standards, is they're supposed to have to actually prove and demonstrate that doing these kind of checking details is actually furthering a legitimate government interest. And I don't think it is at this point. Now, maybe this roadblock was just an exception. Maybe they picked a road where there's just a lot of safe drivers and the average roadblock is catching a lot more than that. But I think it's something that merits some investigation of whether or not roadblocks in general are doing a legitimate government purpose on the whole. You know, if less than 1% of people stopped in a roadblock are actually up to no good, should we really be doing roadblocks? Now, that's the constitutional question. The second question is, from a taxpayer dollar perspective, should we be paying how many officers were out there to be doing roadblocks, taking up the time of these other citizens to find that 0.7% of people, to actually enforce the law upon? I personally vote no, so I think that's something we can also address through our legislature and our local government representatives, that we don't want our tax dollars going to roadblocks if that's all they're doing. It's something I think we need to discuss as a community and as a government, as people who elect our representatives to represent us. And if you don't want roadblocks, you should let your local sheriff know. You should let your elected representatives know at your local level and also at the state level. Personally, I think it's kind of a waste of time and effort, especially if, according to the state police's own numbers, only 0.7% of the people they stopped were actually up to something decently serious that they needed to do to intervene. So it's something to talk about. Please drop a comment, please share, and let's have a discussion. Should roadblocks be allowed or not?